Hello good people, welcome to Vibes Football. My name is Colby Smith and today we're going to be talking about the top 7 reasons / excuses why Liverpool are a steaming pile of dog shit right now. And look, what's the difference between a reason and an excuse? There's a fine line between a reason and an excuse, right? I mean, last season we heard Arsenal fans giving like basically every reason / excuse under the sun, and it just came down to like, if you're an Arsenal fan, it's a valid reason. If you're a rival fan, it's just an excuse, it's just cope. So make of it what you will. These are some reasons. I mean, let me know in the comments whether you think any of these reasons / excuses are valid. Maybe some of them are total bullshit. Maybe it's a mixture of all 7, but let's get right into it. Reason number 1 why Liverpool are a steaming pile of shit right now is that Slot is a fraud and he's got no idea. Now, I don't personally believe this, but it's been put out there and I want to talk about it. And look, yes, he won the league last year with someone else's team. He didn't come in and bring a whole new bunch of tactics and systems into the team last year. He kind of worked with what Klopp had on the pitch in terms of formation, but he did bring his philosophy in. Not a system, it was still 4-3-3, but he began to bring his philosophy of like more control, not as fast and direct as Slot, you know, taking time to make that final ball, holding the ball in midfield longer rather than oftentimes it would just bypass midfield completely and go to the front men. So I'm not going to say he did nothing in his first season, and even if you did do nothing, I just don't think you can win the Premier League no matter what team you're given, no matter how much of like a golden egg that you're handed on the first day. You've got to have something about you to win the Premier League, no matter what the circumstances are. So do I think he's a fraud? No. Do we really know how good of a manager he is? Yes, you can definitely say that because, yeah, he didn't build the team. He didn't assemble the team. And he didn't have to like come in from the very beginning and like start from scratch. It was a continuation of a project that was already kind of successful. But the caveat to that is Klopp didn't win the league with that team that he'd built. Yes, he had built that team over the last couple of seasons and there'd been a transition period. Yes, he won the League Cup, but yes, they were close. They weren't really that far off in the last couple of seasons. But he improved what Slot has. He took them from a team that came, I think, 3rd in the season before that, to a team that was top of the Champions League table when the table finished. They were top of the league from like basically the entire season. They got to the League Cup final. Let's not forget that. So to try and say that this guy's clueless, that he's a fraud, that he's the new Ten Hag, I think that's lazy analysis. That's lazy analysis. Do we know how good he is? Well, this is the season where we find out. If he pulls it out of this rut, like what's the end of this season going to be? I think we can judge him at the end of this season about how great of a manager he is. So reason number 2 / excuse number 2 that Liverpool were just kind of lucky last year, or they weren't really that good. And I can agree to a certain extent that Liverpool weren't amazing. They weren't, yes, they ran away with the league, but in their performances, they weren't turning over teams like 3-0, 4-0 every week. Yes, there was a period at the beginning of the season where they went on an incredible run of like tons of clean sheets, but the football that they were playing, I don't know, there was lots of question marks. Mo Salah dug us out a lot of games last year. If you take away Mo Salah's goal contribution, from that team, then yes, there's a question to be asked, like, were Liverpool, I don't think they were tactically perfect. I don't think the squad was by any means perfect, the depth of the squad. A few injuries last year, we wouldn't have won the league, for sure. Like, VVD gets injured, Salah gets injured, one of the big midfielders, or any one of those 3 midfielders, Sobo, McAllister, Gravenberch, any of those 3 get injured, we would have been a world of pain last year, and that's kind of what's happening this year. I haven't got this reason down because I don't want to be Arsenal too much, but Liverpool have had a bit of a bad run with injuries at the moment, which is definitely harming them. Isak hasn't been fit. McAllister got injured pre-season. Gravenberch has been out the last handful of games. There have been other like kind of smaller injuries, but yeah. I mean, people say the league wasn't that strong last year, but Liverpool still won the league. Have the other teams like massively improved? Yes, I think Arsenal have massively improved, but the teams that we've lost against, have they massively improved since last year? Even the teams that run us close where we had to like get a last minute goal, I think of Bournemouth lost a whole bunch of their players. Crystal Palace, who's done us, have lost Eze. Chelsea beat us. Okay, have they improved? They've bought players, but I don't know if you can call it a wholesale improvement. Manchester United, okay, Man United have definitely improved the front line. They turned us over. So has the team like massively improved? I think the league was very strong last year. You saw how many teams are pushing for those European spots at the end of the season. There was to pick the top four, other than or to pick between like the top 3 to 8 was so hard to predict because there was so much competitiveness in that kind of top half, even down to down to like 15th, well, maybe like 12th, 13th. It's so hard to predict those numbers. So were Liverpool that good last year? They weren't. They were champions, so they were good, but they weren't the kind of. I don't think it was a classic year for Liverpool. It's not like a dominant team like we've seen in the past. So yeah, there is some validity to that reason/excuse. Reason/excuse number 3, that Liverpool are underperforming this year because the top players are getting old. I'm talking specifically about Virgil and Mo Salah. They were both handed big contracts last year. Mo Salah has looked off the boil completely. I mean, he's still got okay numbers, and that goal he scored against, was it Brentford at the end there, where he took it down and like, lashed it into the top corner? That was a world class. The way he plucked that ball out of the air and just rifled it home was world class. I don't think there's many players that can kind of do that. Virgil looks a bit slow, looks a bit tired. I don't know if I mean, look, they're getting older. There's no question about that. They're getting older. Have they gone completely off the boil? Yeah, I don't know. It's so hard to say. I mean, you'd think Mo Salah's scoring like 30 goals, 30 goal assists per season. You'd think there would be a decline of like, maybe he would go from 30 to 20, then to 15, then to 10. Someone who's still putting out 15 goal assists is still a very, very valuable player. We're judging him by his own very high standards. So yes, they've been underperforming. Is it because of their age? Is it because they've just been handed a new contract and they've just like, they've got their feet up, they're already like dreaming of retirement, or they're out, their brains out on the beach somewhere? You don't know what's going on in the mentality of a player, so it's very hard to judge that. I guess we see at the end of the season, if both of these players have this kind of patchy run of form that they're on, if this continues, then we can make that statement that, yeah, maybe time's catching up with them and they're not the players that they used to be. Now, maybe it's just a bad run of form. It's been 10 games. Mo Salah and Virgil van Dijk have had some good games in that time, not amazing games, but I think it's too early to judge. Let's revisit this conversation at the end of the year. And the other caveat to that is that I think the signings that you saw Liverpool make are beginning to like think ahead to future-proof the decline. Okay, we didn't get Gahey, but I think we're trying to bridge that gap early before it gets to that kind of crisis point. Reason number 4 is we sold too many players. And I think this is one of the strongest reasons/excuses why Liverpool are underperforming this year. And a lot of these players, it wasn't like Liverpool just gave them up. I mean, there's a few that they just gave up, but a lot wanted to go. Diaz. I think I read somewhere that Diaz has got like 12 goal assists in 12 games over in the Bundesliga. Basically, Harry Kane's just like absolutely stat padding over there. So anyone on that team has probably already got 10 assists because you just give the ball to Harry Kane and he scores a hat-trick already. But he's tearing it up, and he was so important for us last year. He started in the kind of like false 9 position. He often was putting Gakpo out of the team on that left-hand side. I think him and Gakpo, it's different. It's like they're different players for different kind of occasions, but Diaz is always looking to get in behind. He's always looking to run at defenders. He's like super aggressive off the ball in the press. He leads that press from the front, especially when he's in the false 9 position. And that's a huge loss. It's a huge loss. And he wanted to leave. I mean, he was on like a tiny contract compared to some of the other guys. And I don't know whether Liverpool was saying we're not going to give you a massive contract like Salah, like those guys, or maybe he just wanted a new adventure in Germany. I don't know, but it sounded like he wanted to leave. Same with Nunes. I think kind of Slot had made it very clear that Nunes was never going to be like that Nunes was never going to be a consistent starter. He did get a lot of sub appearances and some important sub appearances as well. But I think he wanted first team football. I think the World Cup's coming up and he was like, I want to be in that World Cup squad. So fair play to him. He left. Kelleher wanted first team football. We'd already bought Mamardashvili. And Kelleher has walked straight into first team football at Brentford, so I can't blame him for leaving either. Elliott was kind of one that we let go again for the same kind of reasons. He wanted first team football. Quansah, that is looking like a terrible decision right now because we, like, one injury to one of our centre backs, Leone's out. Joe Gomez is looking okay. Who knows what's going to happen if you have to start him for like 10, 15 games in a row. So a lot of individuals left, and it's just like that squad, the team was very unchanged last year, won the league, but the squad depth helped them win the league. You can't argue with that. And it's just like dismantling a squad that's just won the league. It's just like, why would you do that? It's just won the league. It's obviously working. Top it up slightly. Don't completely like wholesale get rid of like 7 or 8 players and change it. I think the summer looked really good at the time. But at the beginning of the season, I was a little bit worried about we've sold a lot of players, a lot of quality players. Which brings me on to reason 5, reason/excuse of why Liverpool are total dog shit this season. Reason 5 is that they've bought too many players. Now look, they had to buy some players to replace the players that left. But is this necessarily a bad thing? I mean, look, there were some people out there. My brother told me, look, you bought a whole bunch of players. Then you're going to need some time to bed in. This could be a transition season for Liverpool. And then when I looked at the names, Isak, Wirtz, Ekitike, and I just thought, nah, we're just going to kind of stroll it, which is what a lot of even non-Liverpool fans, Arsenal fans are out there saying. Once Isak deal was done, it was like, okay, the league was yours. They basically conceded the league at that point, a lot of rival fans. But it's come to fruition that they're not kind of gelling. And look, with a whole bunch of players leaving and a whole bunch of new players coming in, that whole dynamic changes. And look, if you ever worked in a workplace where the dynamic is bad, where the vibe is not good, where there's not a good like mesh, you could just feel it in a workplace. It doesn't matter how good those individuals are at their job. If the team is not functioning well, if there's just a bad vibe, not even a bad vibe, but just not a vibe that has just like come together into something, you know, like a unit, a strong unit, then that's going to affect that. That's going to affect the output of the team for sure. So those two reasons kind of go hand in hand. Yes, they've bought a whole bunch of amazing players. They've signed 400 million pounds, euros, whatever, worth of players. The caveat to that is that, and Slot was talking about squad depth earlier, you know, I don't think, there's a lot of holes in that squad still. Like, who's pushing Gakpo for a starting position on that left-hand side? Who's pushing Salah? Well, I guess anyone's pushing Salah right now because his form's terrible. The centre-back situation is not looking great. Like, one injury there, and we're in a world of pain. So there are a few small gaps in that squad, and let's not forget the transfer window before the summer, Liverpool signed nobody. The transfer window before that, Liverpool signed nobody again. So although they spent 400 million, if you spread that out over the 3 or 4 windows, 50 million per window, it's not really an insane amount of money. Like 400 million in one transfer window is huge, but they didn't buy anyone. They didn't spend any money for a year before that. So when you spread it out compared to like other teams in the league that are spending like 200 million every window, that kind of puts some perspective on what Liverpool have done. So yeah, I think the changes to the squad, big changes to the squad is always going to affect the dynamic like that. Were some of those changes necessary? I would have held on to that title-winning squad a little bit harder, personally. But again, maybe next season and the next 2 seasons, Liverpool are going to be on one when this kind of gel clicks. Who knows? So maybe we need to bide our time a little bit here. And that brings me on to reason/excuse number 6, which is the transition which we were all expecting last year, the fall-off from Klopp. That's this season. And that is looking very, very true. We've brought in all of these players. It's going to take time to gel. I don't think Slot knows his best team. There may be like a new dynamic forming within the group where it was kind of like Salah was the big boy, was the superstar. Now you've got this new superstar, Ekitike, coming up from the ranks, you know, taking his shirt off and showing his shirt to the camera when he scores. You've got Isak, who's already a huge name. You've got Wirtz, who's looking like, you know, the future like world superstar of football if he can replicate his form from Germany. So there's a new dynamic. There's a new dynamic into the team and the transition. I don't think Slot really knows his best 11. He doesn't know how to fit these players. You can't fit all of these players in at once. There's going to be some rotation there, but he needs to find a system that works, and then the players need to fit into that system. Right now, he's kind of like, he's trying to fit all the players and changing. It seems like the system's changing every time, even within game. And to be fair, we praised Slot for this last year, which was he would change his style of play. He would change the system during games, within games. When Liverpool were 2-0 up, they would change the system to be more solid. When they were maybe behind, they would change to be more attacking. They would change. He was a dynamic coach that would respond to what's happening in the game. And he's still very dynamic, except for none of the fucking dynamism is actually working. So it looks like he hasn't got a clue. But I think he's just tinkering. I mean, how can it not work? Like, with these names on the table, like the names, the squad that they've got, eventually it's going to click. Maybe second half of the season, it will click. Maybe the title will be gone by that point, but then you'll start to see the momentum build. Maybe something will happen then. Maybe Liverpool fans have just got to suffer this little like 6-month blip of pain. Next season will be the season we go again. And look, I think the Premier League it's very early. I think the Premier League may be done just on form. I don't think you can turn around form that quickly. Points you can turn around quickly, but form and points follow form. Champions League, I think that's a possibility. I think if we put all our eggs in that basket, getting deep into that competition is a possibility. Once you get to the knockout rounds, it's like it's a cup competition, so anything can happen. So that's where I think Liverpool's best chance of like major success. We've just fucking already done the League Cup, so who knows? And this brings me to point number 7, the 6th, point number 7 of why Liverpool are complete dog shit this season. And I'm going to talk about Jota's death, because I don't think we know the impact that Jota's death has had on this team. There was a tweet from Mo Salah at the beginning of the season where he said something like, I can't remember the exact wording. He said something like, I've never not wanted to come back to play football before. This has never happened. What he was saying was that I guess he had like a fear, or he didn't want to go back to that place with all those memories of Diogo. And you saw him early on in the season where I think Liverpool had their first, maybe their second home game. And at the end of the game, the fans, there was a big mural for Jota, flags and banners and all that kind of stuff. Liverpool won. At the end, the team went over to applaud the cop, and the rest of the team went back into the dressing room, and Mo Salah stayed out for like 10 minutes, and like he was crying. He was like visibly upset. And I just think we don't know. Like, I've had periods in my life where I've been at work, and I've never lost someone who's been like, I've lost family members, but I've never lost someone who's been like a brother, which is how I imagine Jota is to this team. Like, they've been through so much, the highs, the lows, like the emotion, especially under Klopp, where that whole team was just fueled on emotion, on brotherhood, and just like on that kind of feeling. And I just think losing a brother like that you've been through so much to, if that was me at work, I've been in situations where I've had like a breakup or something, which is like a minor compared to losing someone like that. And it kind of puts things into perspective, and you just think, what am I even doing? Like, why am I coming to my job? Why am I working like 40 hours a week at this job? It's meaningless. What's the meaning of all of this? Like, if I was a footballer, I'd be thinking, I've got to go out and like kick around a sack of air in front of 70,000 people every week, and like one of my closest friends in the entire world has just left this kind of plane of existence. But I've got all of this expectation on me to just turn up and perform, and like, what's the purpose of it? Like, what is the meaning of all of this when someone you love has been taken from you? And look, I'm just speculating. I think that would have a big impact on a group like that. And there's different stages of grief: denial, acceptance, anger, apathy, depression. Like, what are these guys going through? Maybe they just like are seriously depressed. Maybe the dynamic of the team is just like completely in the mud. And I hear Slot coming out, and he's got a bit of a battering lately in terms of the excuses that he's making, that he's not really owning up to the frailties, the weakness, the almost like lack of passion, which is insane to say for a Liverpool fan, to say that some of the players aren't playing with the passion, the heat that's been instilled in this team, especially since Klopp over the last kind of like decade or so. And part of me thinks maybe he's covering for these guys that are going through like a very dark time. It's only like a number of months ago, like 3 or 4 months ago, they lost one of their deepest friends. I think maybe Slot's just covering for him. Maybe that's what all these excuses are, that he doesn't want to. At the beginning of the season, he mentioned a few times, we've lost Jota. This has had a terrible impact on the squad. We're trying to I can't remember the words that he was using, but like trying to like find our re-find our motivation. And he said it a few times, but then you can't keep falling back on that excuse. You can't keep falling back on that. So maybe he's just covering for them. Maybe that's what he's doing with these other excuses when he's talking about long balls, and he's taking a lot of it onto himself. He's talking about the tactics. He's not really talking about individuals or the team performance. He's talking about tactically we got it wrong. I need to like find a way to deal with these long balls. Teams have found us out. That's him taking responsibility for it tactically. So yeah, I don't know. So what do you think? What do you think? Has Jota's death, would it affect your performance? I know these guys are paid millions of pounds every year, but at the end of the day, you're still a human being. It doesn't matter how much money you get paid. You can't pay someone to forego grief. So what do you think? Is there any reason, any of these reasons / excuses valid? Is there one you think that is just complete bullshit? Am I making excuses? Am I kind of, am I doing Slot's job for him? Are any of these 7 reasons valid? Do you think it's a mixture of all 7 of them? I think it's complex. I think this is why I think it's a crisis, because it's not just one problem. There's a lot of problems that need to be fixed. And look, if Liverpool go out and win 5-0 at the weekend, many of these problems will be forgotten, but I think they'll be there under the surface for the rest of the season, for at least until there's like a bit of momentum starts to build. It's intriguing, and it's also deeply frustrating for a Liverpool fan. We've been at the highest high possible to the lowest low possible with Diogo's death, and then this kind of like fall of form is something I've never experienced. Liverpool have either been patchy, but like a drop off like this from champions to like, we saw it last year with Man City. It's crazy. It really is crazy. And Slot needs to earn his money now. I'm not a Slot out person at all. I think this is where he's got to prove all of the people that said you just inherited Klopp's team, you won it with Klopp's team. He needs to prove all those people wrong. This is where he earns his money. This is where he becomes a great, great manager if he can turn this around and get any kind of result this season. So thanks for watching. Drop a like, drop a subscribe. Let me know what you think in the comments. Am I just talking horse shit, or are these valid excuses? And I'll see you again on the next one.